recording for a little while now, and I think this topic is going to flow nicely into like the first kind of thing I have set up on this agenda. But unlike the past few talks, I kind of want this hosting thing to go like horizontal in the sense of I want to get like some input, feedback, push from Jimmy, Julian, KP, everybody involved in this Black Coffee thing. So we can make this an official intro. Go around the table, introduce ourselves.
How's he introducing?
It's a podcast. Every episode you have to introduce who you are.
Hey,
yeah, that's true. He's right. He's right. Every podcast that I've listened to, it's.
Yeah.
I also candidly
listen to enough podcasts to fully know. I just figured.
We all learn. Yeah, we all learn it. Hey, listen.
Yeah, it's ignorance.
Since Tommy, go ahead, Tommy. Who are you?
We don't have to go deep into the who we are. It's basically like your name, etc., like what you're doing, and and then pass it on from there.
There we go. We need a little bit of
If you can't tell, this is grassroots, folks. Grassroots.
I'm over here trying to adjust mine too. I'm like, well, I want to see my background, but I also don't want the top of my head chopped off. But sorry.
So I'm Rudy, physical therapist by trade, assistant professor as well at a local university. So you can find me, my social media handles throughout the web, Dr. J DPT, simply DRJ_DPT. That's on Twitter and Instagram. KP.
I am Kim. I'm his wife. I'm a physician assistant, but I specialize in general and bariatric surgery, minimally invasive surgery, particularly robotics. That is my forte. I'm just a Black woman out here trying to make it, you know?
And where can the folks find this Black woman out here trying to make it?
Hey, Rudy with the pinch.
I know, right?
She ain't taking it.
Ali, you gotta like
Put that thing in the hole.
capitalize. No, Tommy threw the ball up. You got it. That's an alley. You go and you dunk it. You can.
Sorry. Look,
No,
not with these little TikTokers out here. I don't be TikToking with Rudy, so I don't close the. I don't know any of that.
Jimmy, you and Tim are on two different pages right now.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
No, your social media handle. Where can people find you if they want to like reach out?
If you want to reach out, I'm very private, so I probably won't add you unless something really makes me want to add you. But I am at Curry Gal, and you can figure out the spelling. But yeah, I'm still in public. You ain't gonna find me, so yeah.
Hey, she's honest.
I'm gonna be the person to get the most followers by the end of the
Yep.
Why doesn't she want to add us? Why doesn't she love
I'm
us?
just very private, and I'm also not like, I'm very boring on social media. I will post a picture of a cloud, and that's it for me, you know.
Hey, them clouds be dope too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Them
Exactly.
clouds be dope.
Very beautiful clouds. Absolutely.
I created a whole section called Cloud Atlas, and it's just photos of clouds. I have photos of clouds in my phone, and it's not a cloud
Kim,
or some kind of waterway, literally.
Nerd.
I love
I
it.
be wanting to bully you so bad. Kim. I be wanting to bully Kim. Kim.
You go outside and you get amazed. It's beautiful outside.
Hey, I feel you. You know what? You're right. I climbed Red Rocks actually the other day. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Me and Tom went hiking out there. We spent 3 hours just walking through them trails. We didn't go. So we saw the amphitheater first, but there's actually a ton of hiking trails over there. So we just started hiking. And this man made me get on top of a rock that was leaning off of the edge of like the mountainside, and I was like, he's like, no, it's fine. And I'm like, you know, you have a lot of white confidence. It's like, that's pure whiteness. I can't approach that with that. Like, I love you. Yeah, I got on it. Yeah. Anyways, huh? Yeah, I want y'all to. I have a lot of, like, because I'm embedded in the city, I have a nicer apartment now. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that we can go and do. A lot of active stuff. Yeah.
Find a way. Hopefully within the next year, as things start to I guess change.
Yeah.
We'll see if it's for the better. But as things start to change, we'll find our way to make it out west, start traveling again.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Who are you?
Yeah. So I'm Jimmy Joseph. I'm currently training to become a clinical psychologist. I'm on my internship in last year. More specifically with clinical psychology, I'm very much interested in Black psychology, race psychology, cultural humility psychology. That's kind of like my main thing. And I work with for the last 2 years, I predominantly worked with just Black people, mainly, and refugees. And that runs the gambit of culture. So that's my interest, hopefully one day to be like my full expertise. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Oh, my socials. I'm learning on my social media right now. So I just recently made a Twitter. It's not much. There's like 3 posts. I think it's like at Jimmy D Joseph #1, like the #1, and then everything else like Instagram is at Jimmy D Joseph, and my Facebook is Jimmy Joseph. Yeah, essentially all I post is you just search Facebook. Is there an app for Facebook too?
No one cares about that one. We'll just
well, that's funny.
It's just slash Facebook slash.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Honestly, if you decide to follow me or decide to like come over, all I post is Black resources or like things that pertain to Black mental health or infographics that sort of just specify different things or explain things more in depth and more detail, so people are aware and well informed.
That's necessary though. Keep posting that shit.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I try.
Go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, I'm Julian, aka J Philly Beats. I make music. I'm a music producer. I own my own business, selling my music online and licensing it. So my website is jphillybeats.com. My handle is at jphillybeats for like everything. So that's how you can find me. Thank you.
Humble. All right. Yeah. So this is the core of this discourse medium that we started a couple years ago. Individually, like we are all each pursuing certain aspects of life. We're mainly family. Even those who are actually friends, you can consider them family. All kind of like grew up around each other and whatnot. And every time we kind of like find ourselves around each other again, this is the type of stuff that we do. We sit, we discourse, we drink, we laugh, and we just have a generally good time. So we figured, why not? Yeah, we have a good time usually with some babam. So we figured, why not let the world into this a little bit, and this little network of Black people who want to grow themselves. So with that, I think this episode we were like brainstorming off air about some topics and what I think our discussion before the intro kind of leads directly into one of the first points I have, and that's kind of like the education piece. And in this current COVID environment, specifically returning to school, whether you're in grade school or you're in college or whatnot, returning to school amidst COVID. So for those who are still currently kind of like in it, looking at you, sir, Jimmy, maybe I'll start with you. Like, what are your thoughts on that and the push from society really to kind of like get back to normal, whatever that means?
Oof. So I don't even know where to start. Usually like my thoughts are so clear prior to, and then like you put the camera on me, I'm jumbled. But honestly, just to put it out there and plainly, nothing has been resolved. If anything, things are getting worse when it comes to COVID-19 and the spread of COVID-19. So it makes zero to no sense to have children return to school. I think the government has made it very clear, and I don't know how much clearer it needs to be made. Like, they could care less about the lives of your children. And
well, many of us, as a matter of fact.
yeah. So they openly just don't care. And they're spreading misinformation and false information to try to placate you into thinking that you're okay. It's like someone literally burning you with like a torch and like whispering sweet nothings into your ear. It's like they're still burning you. Right. So that's kind of and also like how the education system has like treated its foreign students who are here on education visa, like is a huge slap in the face. We talk about like, we can get into like the brain drain and how this is typically a pattern of countries that are about to go through very tough times. When the academics and the intellects start to leave the country, that it is usually a bad sign for that country historically. So and we're seeing that here. A lot of people are like, man, I don't think I want to stay here anymore. And the international students that I know who have gone back home have expressed the sentiment of like, I will never return to this country. So
where are they from? Just...
Yeah,
well, one of them in particular is from Jamaica. So.
Well, let me add, this is a complete side note.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I don't know how accurate this is, but I saw a post on Instagram that I think one of the high courts in Jamaica is banning
dreadlocks.
Yes.
They're what?
Yeah.
Yes. And they can
Yeah.
actually like dismiss students or like completely say that students can't attend this school based off of that. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that sounds wild.
Seemingly, both of you have heard this news.
Yep.
I'm always skeptical when you hear things from Instagram, like that.
I think it was
The academic in me, I'm like, okay, before I like put any like credence to this, like where exactly is this really coming from? But if that is true, we'll eventually probably touch on this too. But that's like the most colonized mindset that I can think of. Like even back home in the Caribbean, seemingly our own people still are basically letting colonization and European powers and their norms kind of influence their own culture.
Always. Yep.
So I definitely agree with that. And the reason why obviously we're educated, so we're not gonna just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna take this for whatever. But it was a screenshot of a Washington Post article, which is here, you guys.
Yeah.
See, but it is a real thing. And you're right. It is this colonialized mindset that we all constantly have to undo. You know, I reached out to one of my Jamaican friends, and she reposted it, and I told her, I was like, this is complete foolishness, you know. And she was like, you know, I get, you know, pretty much treated, you know, weirdly because I have natural hair. And I'm like, what? I have like this, are we really even doing this? And then I had to sit here and think for myself. And I was like, I remember because I couldn't perm my hair, I didn't think I was beautiful like my cousins and friends that could perm their hair. Then I got used to my natural hair. Now I have locks, and I'm like, well, you know, like I don't feel like my beauty is the same as like someone who has natural hair or who has straight hair or whatever, because of these stigmas that are associated with wearing locks. But yet I'm like, well, I'm gonna keep on writing this stuff out because, you know, like it's that second thought where you think, you're like, this is not right. This thought process is like not right at all. Like, where is this coming from? And it's because you were told over and over that you need to fit this mold to be beautiful or to be successful or to be someone that's influential or whatever. Like
that mold is basically a white mold. It's viewed ways of white European powers or like descendants of said white European powers, that is like Americans in North America. So I don't know. I mean, just hearing about this news, it like frustrates me
It's
to certain,
upsetting.
because I know I've personally had to deal with similar issues related to just hairstyle and how one chooses to express their personality here in the States, growing up again, not only from the popular culture, not only American culture, but our own
Yep.
culture. So patriarchal figures within our own family who, in their upbringing, were fed a certain belief or mindset that if we conform enough, if we make ourselves look like them enough, etc., if we're docile enough, then we will be accepted into society. And we know that's not factual at all.
Right.
So, and unfortunately, as their offspring, a lot of these beliefs were like forced onto us, and a lot of us had no choice but to ingrain them. Some of us chose to turn against them and whatnot. And just when you think you're getting to a point where you're kind of like leaving those thought processes behind, you hear stuff like this. It's like, really? Schooling in Jamaica, these individuals are trying to get their own people to turn away from something that's really, it's cultural.
You know,
right? It's part of their culture, their
Yeah.
ethnicity. And now, like, children are being threatened with, what you said, like being kicked out of school.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it literally blows my mind, because as someone who has been on their lock journey for now going on 13 months, so I'm like in my infancy altogether. And one of the main reasons why I kind of have that second dialogue in the back of my mind every time that I struggle with this new look is that this is a part of my culture, you know, and I find so much strength and beauty in it, because so many family members, whether you're Jamaican or Haitian or whatever, if I consider you family, you family. And so many people, I'm around so many people that have locks, and I've always found it so beautiful, like this extremely beautiful like thing. And I always thought my hair was too soft, that I couldn't really do this, or oh, you know, who am I? I'm going to be in this profession where I have to look a certain way and carry myself a certain way. So to see that, I'm like, what? That's so upsetting. And then I also know, I'm not really surprised. I mean, I am surprised, but then when I look at it, I'm like, in the United States, how many little news articles do you see where little girls are chastised because they have natural hair? They have big, beautiful, luscious natural hair that literally defies gravity, defies every kind of bland ass texture, non-textured ass hair. You know, like literally, it's just beautiful, and they get like literally bullied by not kids, but actually like grown ass adults because of their hair. So it's very upsetting, because I feel like hair to Black women, or just Black people in general, it's something that we celebrate a little bit more than the general, like our counterparts, because we either get shit for it or we get like, you know, like, oh look, this is unique.
Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, I don't know what your like thoughts are, like Jimmy or Julian, on that, but as you can tell, Julian, if you want to take a
No,
next.
I mean, just I would just wonder why, you know, why would they even think to do that? Is my first thought. Do you know? There's a million things that could come to mind, but do they think they want to make their school a certain way, or you know, whatever it may be? I'm not too sure what it is, but I also see it as a thing where why not look at it as something prideful in the culture? You know, something that's worn so often. You know, and done almost so naturally too, to where it's a thing. It's almost your mascot or your symbol. You know, this kind of freedom or this kind of style that people wear so naturally so often. So I kind of see it as kind of backwards, just like everybody's saying. It's kind of a certain mindset. But I wonder why, and I wonder also, you could turn it around and make it a strength just as easily. So why not do that? So in saying that, I wonder what the people would do also, like, people hearing this and being like, well, we're not going to be allowed to do that,
Right.
because then they also got to fight against it. If
Yeah.
that were to happen and make it known, like, whoa, there's no reason for this,
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
my an anecdotal experience when I was in high school, I had a friend of mine tell me that it's and she was from Jamaica. She said it's ironic that there's a more of a celebration for dreadlocks in the States, because in Jamaica to have like dreadlocks, she was speaking more about like the freeform locks. It's
Mhm.
looked down upon. You look dirty, poor. You don't come from good stock, things of that nature. So I think the country has had a history of this, and now they're putting not just like social stigma, but like policy in place,
Yeah.
which is terrible. And I think Tommy touched on it, or mentioned it, but it is very much, I think, a product of the colonized mind, and that colonized mind bleeds and spreads throughout an entire culture of people. When you talk about like black hair and how it should be celebrated, it's often like people within the black community. You both use an example of us calling out people and it's like, oh, your hair looks crazy, da da da, instead of celebrating it. And it's such an insidious part of colonialism, because now, and forgive my language, but like the master no longer has to use his tools when you are the tool being used. You're the one essentially perpetrating upon your own culture. So white people or white culture or colonial culture, Western culture, whatever you want to call it, all they have to do is sit back, because they've already influenced us and poisoned the mind to a degree where like we're putting things in policy in black countries that are oppressive towards our own people. Like dreadlocks are a symbol in many places of freedom. That's how I look at my hair. That's how I look at locks in general. To get locks, especially in a Haitian family, is to go against a lot of what our Haitian parents told us about dreadlocks. It's like, if you get dreads, you will not get a job. You'll be seen like this. They'll hate you. They'll this, that, blase, blase. And for the similar reasons as Tommy got his dreads, is why I got my locks. It's to prove a point. It's like the hair doesn't make the man. The cosmetic nature of my hair does not inevitably create my character. And therefore, this hairstyle is not an expression of freedom.
Yeah.
To Julian's point, it's like, this is a strength. Like, I really like that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's unfortunate because, again, it's like one of the many ways, to your point, that we're still dealing with the ramifications of colonization, and how individuals don't necessarily have to be present in an area for those seeds that have taken root to kind of easily spread, and then influence subsequently the culture, right? From hair to skin tone. In the Caribbean, I'm reading Why the Cocks Fight Now, which is basically a book that details some of the historical events why Haiti and the Dominican Republic kind of have always been warring with each other. And within said book, I'm reading about how going back to like the 17, 1800s in Haiti and in the Dominican Republic, you basically had these phylas or categories created for type of hair. And you should see that's how extensive and different descriptors that they would have for hair, and the same thing with skin tone. And then what they considered pure versus, of course, low, bottom, or worse is usually Black or African. So it's unfortunate that even to this point, we're still dealing with the ramifications of events that occurred in the 1600s, so on and so forth. But
yeah.
I think the issue was, I didn't read the article in its full entirety. I just kind of did a synopsis and then also looked at that post. And it was more so tied to the Rastafarian culture or whatnot. And I mean, the way I look at it is similar to how you guys look at it, like with locks particularly. I think it's something incredible for you to just not, like, to let go and just let your hair do its thing. And it takes a lot more, to me, it's a lot more stressful than me like saying, oh, let me put my product in my hair, get my curls popping, like let me do my detangling process. Like, yes, that's physically taxing, but like it is so much more to be, this one's much more mental, where you're like, my hair looks crazy, but does it? But my hair isn't looking like the next person, or, you know, it's something very, and Julie and I talked to you about that, and you've told me specifically, like, your hair will do its thing. Just let it do its thing. And it's so hard. It's so hard because you want to control in whatever way, make sure the baby hair is swooped. You gotta, you know, all this stuff where like it really doesn't matter. But I just look at it as like this whole colonialized mentality. It's a lot to continue to undo. You know, we find so much beauty and strength within ourselves based off of these accolades that we've reached, or the looks that we've created for ourselves, or the things that we've obtained. And it's really, when you look at it, like, what checklist does this all fit in? Is it really just you personally, or is it the societal, colonialized, just messed up mentalities? Like, what's really the source of what's driving all this, you know, I guess goals or whatnot? And I don't know. I look at the whole thing and I get sad, and I'm like, you know what? Rock your locks. Like, you don't have natural curls that are just boisterous and just do their thing. Do that. If you want to have locks, free form, not free form, whatever, just do you. Like, it's really, it's unfortunate that it's hair. It's really hair. At the end of the day, it's really hair. But I just feel like Black people, for some reason, their hair is like this big topic of thing, like this big, huge topic of discussion, whether it's within our own community, from you know, people from outside of our communities. It's just hair. Truthfully, it's hair. But since it's always this big topic of discussion, like, shit, I'm gonna celebrate this. You know, like, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But this is also, I know my thoughts are all jumbled, but to add this, you know, I know Jimmy and Rudy, you guys got a lot of pushback when you guys had locks, or decided to, you know, go through the locking process and do that. This article is so surprising to me, because my parents, I thought they would be like, no, what are you talking about? But again, they were like, oh, it's a matter of time. What took you so long? Like, it looks good on you. My dad was so receptive to my hair just being whatever and doing whatever. He was like, you look like a Marley.
You look like a Marley. That's funny.
He was like excited, and he was like, just let it be. Just do your thing. And it's just crazy that they ruled this, because I'm like, what?
Yeah. I wanted to say something to like the whole process you were talking about of like how much we emphasize hair and how much we talk about hair. And then also the component of like, as we're learning and making the attempts of like decolonizing ourselves and becoming more aware, like there is that process. It's like a bell curve almost, where it's like you start to learn, you start to become more aware, and then you feel stress. You feel that stress can adapt and turn into depressive symptoms, anxious symptoms a lot of the times, hypervigilance, which is like the minute you step outside, you're now heightened and you're like more aware of your surroundings, and you feel tense, and it can induce panic even. I think what I've enjoyed seeing, especially amongst, and I'm starting to see it amongst Black men too, but especially amongst Black women, is that even online, they've created a community to support and to strengthen one another and uplift one another. Because doing this work is very difficult. Doing this work of like educating oneself while also being demanded to educate white people is very taxing. And the awareness that we come into, we already have to reconcile ourselves with it, because we have to reflect on ourselves and how we've contributed to this system.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, there's like a whole section of the internet now where like, again, Black women is where I like see a lot of it. where they're like uplifting one another and they're defending one another and they're calling things out and they're also checking us Black men. So even when we, as Black men, like I'm starting to see this movement where it's like, all right, uplift, not only uplift your brothers, but call your brothers out. Normalize calling your brothers out on their misogynoir, their like sexist ways of maneuvering into this world. And so like, yes, this process is very difficult. Yes, this process can really tear you apart. But I've noticed that like it's the community mindset that we're driving towards that is also building us back together as we're doing this work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there hasn't been a lot of the, at least within the Black male community, of the holding each other accountable. There hasn't been too much of that yet. Hoping it continues to go down that road. But to the whole lifting up thing that you're talking about, I remember like maybe a month ago now, randomly, when they were doing that whole, it was like a series of like, it was a thread of like posts where somebody would tag you something and you're supposed to copy said statement and then put up a nice photo of yourself and then like do the same thing for like 5 or so other like Black males who inspire you or you like hold high esteem. And I was like, okay, I never really saw that within the Black male community before, but of course like Black women and whatnot would do stuff like that all the time on social media. So I was like, this is different. But yeah, so that's one example that I've seen out there.
Yeah, the one.
All right, yeah, the one. I want to see more of that, but then also more of the accountability. Like when we say act and do bullshit, we need to call each other out on that in the same fashion, to the same extent. So.
Yeah. Putting popular media into this just a bit, like, look at how, not as a culture, like, look at how we responded when you hear the news, something that's never happened before. A Black female rap artist is shot in both of her feet by a Black male rapper. And the response to that in actuality was, you know, this over jokes, like jokes and jokes and jokes. And that then tax, obviously, this person who's already been assaulted, tax them to the point where they have to now respond and check people. And at that point, it's like a lot of them jokes are flying out of popular Black men. A lot of those jokes are flying out of like Black men in the industry who are doing the same thing, and some Black women as well. And it's like that's the part where like the culture needs to shift. I think like really taking seriously. I think that reflects directly into the healthcare system not taking women's suffering seriously. Like the healthcare system looks at a Black woman and thinks nothing of their ailment, or their when they project their suffering, they don't consider them at all. This Black woman says, or news comes out that this Black woman is shot twice, and it's jokes. It's not taken seriously. Right. And so like it runs very deep within our own culture as well. And we need to reflect on why that is and how sometimes like this is something that's recently come to my awareness, but like glorifying Black women as being strong actually diminishes them a lot, because then you think to yourself that you can put more responsibility and weight on them because they're quote unquote strong. It's like, yes, I can respect and appreciate your power, but I also need to understand and check myself and not dump things on a Black woman as a responsibility too. And I know I like veered off the point a little bit there, but I mean, just in talking about like taking Black women seriously, that's like something that's been rotating in my mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you think about how high school, everybody wanted to be the funny guy. Like everyone had jokes on people, how they came in, like an incident and all that stuff. And I don't know if it's that same mentality of people that are on social media who can have the funniest thing, have their meme hit or like content that they had hit or whatnot. And there's a time to laugh and there's obviously a time not to. We can all laugh about 2019. You know what I mean? Like overall, the general blanket statement of 2020. 2019 was not that bad compared to 2020. You know, we just did not know it. Yeah. So 2020, like overall, it's definitely like hit us, you know, and we can laugh about like just kind of how this is a shared experience where we all thought we was coming into a new decade and whatnot. But there's another thing, like making a blanket joke over a generalized experience versus something that's individual. So like COVID-19 jokes particularly, you gotta be careful. You gotta also be very careful about racial jokes. White people, stop it. It's not. I'm like, hold on. I need you to. It's not fucking funny. Seriously, I don't want to hear that shit when I'm working on any fucking notes, or when I'm passing by you. Keep that shit to yourself. I don't find
Get him.
You see this vein? Yes.
Get him.
So that's not funny. And then also, if someone actually had an injury, it's not funny. And like, I'm not a like major Meg Thee Stallion fan. Like you know what I mean? Like I like some of her music, other things, like it's not something that I jive with, but I will always celebrate a young woman or a woman in general doing their thing. And it blowed my mind that she had to like literally make a public statement. And like, it also sucked watching her like get very emotional about what she's experiencing and how she feels alone. And I'm like, you're already very open. With being a celebrity, you're already very open to everyone's opinions and all of that stuff. Now you're going through something. There's a clear reason why you have not made a public statement immediately. There's a clear reason why you're not saying specifically who did what from whatever, you know. But then you have people in the industry, whether they know you personally or not know you personally, they're sitting here like you're the butt of the jokes, but you're trying to like heal. That to me is like trash, you know what I mean? Like, and we all have our trash moments. As long as you realize it's trash, you accept being called out for it, you just move on. But like, that is just unfortunate. Like, we need to know when it's appropriate. I think people in general need to know when it's appropriate to make jokes and then when it's not. And I always said this, I feel like, you know, they can rewrite history however which way they want to, whatever, they've been doing that for centuries. But I really feel like it's important to start having like this etiquette class, like this human to human etiquette class that we need to start from like toddlers. Like we need to just start injecting that into kids right as soon as they start to formulate who's who, what's what, because I really feel like this would kind of help a little bit. Like people just don't care for each other, and that's just so sad. Like we already traumatized from 2020 and we still got 4 fucking months left in this year. Like can we
I think your solution to the problem ties into a lot of the things that I've been reading about recently, which is like transformative justice, as well as like community-based interventions. So basically, like you're saying, there needs to be like this etiquette class, right? For a lot of these individuals who are making these jokes. Really, at the root of it, we need to all be in a place where we realize that the community is, you have a responsibility as a person in your community. So what these individuals who are making these jokes are, they're very internal, very individualized, very culturally individualized. So how they're seeing a situation of somebody getting shot, there's a complete lack of empathy there. They're individualized, like I'm working for me, this is something for me to laugh at and make jokes off of and capitalize off of. Like that's what that is. And it's an indirect and direct result of capitalism, because like, it just teaches you to separate and separate and separate. But if we're teaching youngins and we're teaching ourselves that no, as a person, I am responsible not only for myself, but the community at large around me, I will intervene when I see somebody who's getting hurt. I will reach out and to try to support instead of try to tear down and manipulate a situation to benefit myself and not care what happens to this other individual. That's like the crux of a lot of these things. People are like, we're very like punishment oriented. We're very carceral oriented. We're very like, hey, let's if somebody does something wrong, we need to beat them down. And it's like, that doesn't work. What works is re-education. What works is accountability. Like, and that's what's missing.
So I mean, that, to your point, that does kind of run deep within the culture, and even outside of like something serious like a health element or some kind of trauma that may happen to someone. Just think back to like when you were in middle school, and some maybe even elementary school, depending on where you went to school, right? So we coming up in Palm Beach and whatnot, like some of the schools that we went to when we were in middle school were rough places, right? So part of that environment was getting your ass roasted in. Like, it doesn't matter. You say, do something, act some way that a collective might find idiotic. They're gonna let you know about it or whatnot.
Right.
Whatever you do is outside of what would be considered societal norm. They're gonna let you know about it, and they'll let you know about it repeatedly, and they'll let other people know about it.
Right.
Form of like roasting, the jokes, so on and so forth. So it's like you're kind of brought up in this environment of I need to be on my P's and Q's. I step wrong. They're gonna be on my ass. So and then that carries over into adulthood, unfortunately, even into the most serious of like life events. To the example you guys gave about the whole getting shot in the foot thing. So yeah. So with that, it's like I guess that's the black mental headspace. And I guess like living within a health crisis that is COVID, the pandemic, kind of like brings that to the forefront even more. Because we all know we have so much time on our hands now. Everyone really does. And what do you do with that? Jump on the social media. There's a reason why, like, FANG, if you guys are into investment and you know that term, like the big tech companies are doing so well during this period of time, right? So they're outpacing what is expected to happen in the stock market. Like a lot of industries are like suffering heavily. When it comes to like Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, the big names you know about, just this past week, they're reporting like massive like profits and whatnot. So, and that's being reflected in their share prices. So that's because people are spending their time on their phones, on the computer, etc. So some of these businesses are doing very well because we as a people are expressing every aspect of our human experience during this pandemic on social media. So
capitalism at its fucking worst and finest, I guess, because that's what it's designed to do.
Its finest.
Yeah, worse and finest because that's what it's designed to do. Like we can't remove like capitalism. We can't look at capitalism as if it's an adaptive thing. Culturally, like I always try to go back to the culture of what is in place. The culture of capitalism is the removal away from like social interaction. Capitalism does not function as a system that cares about people. It cares about capital. It cares about things and stuff. It cares about money and gain and on an individual level. And that's why you have what percentage of the U.S. population's funds is allocated into what, 7 people? So it's like it's ridiculous that this amount of people, like there should be a world where there is no billionaires. There should be a world where there might not even be millionaires. Like the things that you can afford, like the things like travel, housing, things that are enjoyable for the basic human experience don't cost that much. But capitalism will dictate that, like you need these things. It's ingrained in the mentality of us as well. And for there to be someone on the other end gaining resources from me expressing pain on a social media outlet, that's not right. That shouldn't be a thing that's put in place.
Some perspective there.